So, good morning and Merry Christmas to all. December 16th, 17th, somewhere around there in Lake Casitas, beautiful lake here in a little north of Los Angeles, where we are camped in our little RV on a part of our tour around the country. Paula's behind the camera and our editor-in-chief, and she just made a face at me, so we'll forget that. Anyhow, with me today, we are honored to have the one and only James Hurley, who is a 1983, did you say? 83 grad.
83.
And you go ahead and, you went to the summer session, you said.
I
which
did.
Is,
I did.
That was kind of a last minute thing that we came up with, really to help pay the rent. But I'm glad.
Seen from this perspective, it makes sense.
Yeah, so anyhow, how was that? When you looked at that funky old building on Hollywood Boulevard, and how did you headed up those stairs and say, oh my God, what was your feelings about that?
Well, I confess I was more relieved than not that it was not a huge, beautiful USC-looking edifice. You know, I came from rock bands, and quite honestly, the reason I chose the summer session initially was to find out whether I could even pull it off. You know, I was playing in bands and making my living with a guitar, but the concept of a music school literally hadn't entered my mind until a rehearsal. And I quit the band, literally. I said, I quit. What are you going to do is the question. And I made it up right there on the spot. I'm going to go to school.
Good.
I was tired of reinventing the wheel every time I picked one up. So I did what it took to put myself in the summer session to find out whether I could cut it. Now, approaching that portal at 6757 Hollywood Boulevard.
Good memory.
Oh man. And those big iron gates, I figured, okay, I'm going into the belly of the beast now.
Boy.
And one of us is going to have a real experience, either them or me. So it was, how would you put that? It was a moment of terror.
Terror, yeah.
Hope. Inspiration.
Oof.
It was all of those emotions all crammed into those first steps and then that first week. And the summer session allowed me to get my bearings. That was, and there was no way I was not attending that school after the summer session.
Yeah, it was a taste of the full school. You got a taste of it. Who were, just curious, quite often in those days, our main teachers like Mock and Diorio and so forth were busy with the regular school year, so we had some graduates that were exceptionally good guitar players that we brought in as instructors. Do you remember who they were, or who one of them was?
Steve Freeman, Doug Perkins.
Steve Freeman and Doug Perkins, okay.
Steve Travato.
Travato? Oh yeah, you had some good ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had horsepower.
Oh,
man.
horsepower.
We absolutely did.
That's a good word for it. Yeah. And then so from there you went from, so that was summer. Did you go right in the fall into?
Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, there was no turning back.
Okay. And now you've gone through the kind of the preps course. Were you more comfortable then?
Well, I suppose I must have been. It just seemed to be a continuation of what had gone before. Like I said, I was trying to get my bearings and find out whether, not even where, but whether I fit into this scenario. And I discovered, well, during the summer session, I met Gil Pellerano, and I hope you get a chance to talk to him. He and I just were buds.
Oh. Did you find that to be kind of, I use the word typical of the feelings that you had, how quickly you found buddies in that place?
It was startling, Pat. It was, the first, some of this is not going to make it into the edited version, so I'm just going to go ahead and speak like I speak. Okay.
Speak like you speak.
That first week, imagine a bunch of dogs sniffing butts. That's what that first week was like.
That's in there. Sorry, that's in there. No,
I mean,
no censorship here.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Well, that to me was what it was like. Is how the dogs get together on the beach, and everybody's got to find out who's what and all of that sort of thing. And boy, that first quarter was everybody figuring out where and whether they fit.
Mm.
And then the second quarter was devoted to, now this is just my perspective, second quarter was devoted to how do I grab everything I can?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, unless you walked in with a true path and vision like some of us did,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew right where they were headed. The rest of
Yeah.
us were just kind of blundering around like
Yeah.
pinballs in a machine.
Yeah.
So the second quarter was gather everything you can.
Mm-hmm.
That third quarter, after that break, you come back and you look at your buddies, the people you spent, you know, in GL 14, or you just spent 6 months in a lab this big with these people, and they come back from that intermission,
Mm-hmm.
and you go, holy, you can really play. I mean, that's what that was like.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
And so the third quarter was watching the manifestation of all of that crucible of creativity. It was just, it was really something.
Wow. So with like third quarter, okay, so now that happened to be a turning point for many students, because now you were allowed to get in with Diorios and Joe Passes and in there, and Pat Martino's, who was gone before you came, of course. But in the third quarter of the school, some of the students were more advanced, were allowed to go in. Before that, unless they were already pretty hot players, which many of them were, they kind of had to wait. So did you get in there with any of those guys?
You know, Pat, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. I spent some time with Joe Pass.
Mm.
And
Tell me about Joe. What was your reaction to that guy?
I'm not sure you want me to.
Well, he might have. Did he curse you out a few times?
You know what? I had words with Joe Pass.
Ooh, did you?
Yes, I did.
Whoa, well.
I was in a room, in a very, very small room. There must have been 15 people too many for the room.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this young guy who I knew to be a devotee of Joe Pass. And he was so overwhelmed when asked to play by the master that he was incapable of playing.
Oh,
and
just
Joe went
froze.
off on him.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went off on Joe.
Good for you.
And so Joe Pass is at the absolute apex of instrumental solo guitar in my book.
Mm-hmm.
But he never called me to go to dinner or anything like that.
After that, well, I know Joe's got a reputation for that, with a little stogie out of the corner of his mouth. Joe Pass, Diorio, those guys. But who would you say, the greatest influence on you of all those?
Oh.
And it could be anybody from a fellow student or.
Yeah. There were. I can't name one. Okay, I'm going to have to preface this with that.
Oh.
Some of the salient names. There was a guy in my class that rocked everybody's world. A guy named Frank Gambale.
Oh God, Gambale, yeah, one of the greats.
Yeah, he was outrageous. First week, he's holding court in P2, and the entire school came down to find out what this Aussie kid was doing. It was just unbelievable. So he was at an influence just to be in. I said earlier, there was a lot of horsepower in that class.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Henderson.
Scott
was teaching there, and that was. If you could transplant that musical sensibility, I'd have a serious helping of that. You know?
A serious helping. Well, you just named two, Gambale and Henderson. That the point I want to make about that is that many of these fellows that came to school were already very advanced. Scott Henderson walked in like Frank, and they just sat down and started giving lessons, and they just pick and choose if a class they wanted to go to, but they already knew what they wanted.
Those were those guys.
Yeah, were. There was quite a mixture of just somebody who had gone to a summer session, and then coming in, sitting down next to Steve Freeman or Gambale or one of those guys made quite a.
It was a heck of a dynamic.
Yeah, a dynamic.
It was a musical stew, I'll say.
Because that is a strange little building, and Hollywood's weird, and from your perspective, how old were you when you came in there?
I was pretty old for the class. I think I was about 26.
26. Yeah, that would have been on the upper
Yeah.
edge. So you had a little gray hair by then, do you think?
Well, I still had hair. Actually, I looked like a palm tree at the time, folks, but I don't anymore.
A palm tree. So maybe you could recall when you just think back of an incident, something that to this day every once in a while will pop into your head that might have happened that really made you laugh or made you cry or made you get angry at Joe Pass. That was a good one. But anything like that.
Okay, I got one for you.
All right.
I got one for you.
All
I've bullshitted the bullshitter.
Oh,
Okay, I don't know if that's going to make it.
that'll make it.
Okay. I got selected as a soloist in the class album. Right?
Did you?
Yeah. It was an honor to be positioned between the composer of the song, Peter Storn, and Frank Gambale to my right.
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
yeah.
That's rarefied territory. And who's conducting? Tommy Tedesco.
Tommy.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, so here's Tommy. The three of us, the three soloists, are also the sax section. All right? And Tommy's got 25 guitars up there masquerading as various and sundry instruments, and he's doing his best to herd these cats.
Uh-huh.
And I confess, Pat, it didn't take me long when I was at MI to realize that reading was not high on my priority list. So I couldn't read the chart that was sitting in front of me. I couldn't read the notation. I could muck through the chart. And, you know, Frank's sitting there doing what Frank does, and Peter wrote the doggone thing. He knows what's going on, and there's something wrong in the sax, as Tommy says. And, you know, Frank very, very graciously kind of glances at me, and Peter just kind of moved a little further away from me. And so, having spent some time around Tommy and having read his columns and stuff, I said, oh, okay, I got that, Tom. And I just reached down and I turned my guitar off. And we went through the section the next time. I said, is that a little better, Tom? He says, yeah, that's a lot better, thanks. And Frank says, you got him, mate. Peter almost, it was a moment. It was a moment.
Perfect story. And starting it by saying bullshitting the bullshitter. And I knew immediately who you meant.
Who I was talking about.
Because he was the world's greatest BSer. At the same time, like he said, after he gets done with his little putting himself down, at the end he said, and don't let anybody fool you. He says, I'm a bitch at what I do.
Oh, no question.
And he was
no
when it
question.
came down to it. So that's a beautiful story. That's a beautiful story. So then, all right, then you graduated did you graduate in 83 or 84?
Recall, must have been in September. I think.
September 80, probably 84 then. You probably, before that new class came in. So, and all right, so then now you were living in Moore Park now. Were you living there then?
Well, I landed there while I was going to school. I had left the road to come to school, and then when I left MI, I went back on the road. And just playing in countless unmemorable dance bands. I was making a living with my guitar, which requires that you learn to operate a steering wheel really well.
That was Howard Roberts' main thought about when he wrote the curriculum was that you had to be vocationally capable of holding down any kind of a job, whether it's teaching a class or teaching a private student or faking it like you did for Tommy. You'd come up with all those little things that you needed to make a living. And have you been in the business all this time?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how great. So now what's going on now with you?
Well, one of the things I finally figured out, maybe the last week at MI, was what I wanted from this music thing. And it took a while to get there, but all I ever really wanted was to be a recording artist. And I had to be competent enough on the instrument to be able to play the things I was writing. And so MI stood me in good stead in that department.
Attaboy. Yes.
So nowadays I am a professional touring performing songwriter. That's what I do.
Attaboy. Congratulations. That's what I love to hear it. I love to hear that. Now, would you give okay, we got youngsters coming up, and the school's still going strong. It's still got the heart and soul that was when you were there, but it's a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit bigger, but still the type of person that comes to that school still has that same desire that you did. So what advice would you give, let's say, to some kid standing at the steps of that school?
Boy, open up.
This is just the kind of thing I want the folks out there to know about you, and not only that, but about your music. Maybe in a minute you could play a little something without me messing you up. If you can.
Sure, but we got to jam some more.
I won't bullshit. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And anyhow, so James made his way up here and spent this cool, crisp December morning with us, wishing us everybody out there a Merry Christmas. And so we'll close now, and I'd like to just take a minute before we're done. But maybe, James, if you feel like just playing on something, just doing something that you're comfortable with on the guitar, just for a little closing thing, whatever you feel like. Nothing like putting you on the spot or anything. It's all right.
Oh, the spot.
Yes,
I'm familiar with
place.
that. I'm familiar with that location. Can I sing too?
Oh, yeah, sing. Great.
Maybe we could take a nice vacation. A week or two would certainly be grand. A trip to Transylvania might be just the thing. It's lovely in the fall, I understand. Though I know you harbor reservations in light of all the stories through the years. Well, let me be the first to reassure you and put away your worries and your fears. Because the vampires live in Southern California, not the drafty castles of the olden days. The vampires live in Southern California, along the sunny beaches where the palm trees sway. Come on, sway with me. Now Paris used to be the destination for lovers with romance on their minds. And if one had a taste for the finer things, then Venice or Rome could not be far behind. But Saint-Tropez has now become a ghost town, and Monte Carlo's simply become passé. The jet set flies into Transylvania, where all of the beautiful people go to play. Because the vampires live in Southern California, and not the drafty castles of the olden days. The vampires live in Southern California, along the sunny beaches where the palm trees sway. Legends say there was a time, if the light of day should shine upon a vampire, he would burn away. But once the big boss got his hold on Robert Johnson's immortal soul, they moved the corporate office to L.A., Los Angeles. So now the vampires live in Southern California, not the drafty castles of the olden days. The vampires live in Southern California, along the sunny beaches. There's nothing but sunny beaches. Look at the sunny beaches where the palm trees sway. Ooh, look at the palm trees sway. There's nothing but sunny beaches out where the palm trees sway. Got that look of astonishment on Pat's face? Okay.
It was astonishing. I hope you enjoyed what I just absolutely loved, every second of it. I even got in there and sung with you a
I
little bit.
appreciate that. We're going on the road.
We're
folks.
going on the road. He could use an old guy in there, so I got some old stories. Anyhow, we want to say goodbye from Lake Casitas and thank James for absolutely just thrilling us with shocking me with the great music and the great stories. And so to all of you out there that know about our good old school, MI, and I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And God bless you all, and have next year be the best year you have had so far.